The intelligence of school children. How children differ in ability, the use of mental tests in school grading, and the proper education of exceptional children, by Lewis M. Terman, Professor of Education, Leland Stanford Junior University. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Leon Harvey. Editor's Introduction. 3 years ago, the author of the present volume published, in this series, The Measurement of Intelligence. This represented a number of years of careful scientific work on the part of himself and his students in testing out and adapting to American needs and conditions the very important foundation work of the French scholar Binet. It was predicted at the time of the volume would prove of fundamental importance in pointing the way to more intelligent schoolroom procedure, and that in time the mental measurement of all children not making satisfactory educational progress would become a matter of routine in the administration of a school. The reception given to the volume, not only in this country, but in Canada and England as well, has exceeded expectations. With the entry of the United States into the World War and the application of intelligence testing to our Army recruits as a means of grading capacity and sorting them for the serious business of war, an entirely new impetus has been given to intelligence measurements. As a result of the work done in the Army, as much progress has been made during the past 3 years in the use of intelligence tests as ordinarily might have been expected in a decade. In consequence, the large usefulness of intelligence testing has been thoroughly demonstrated, and as a result, the near future is almost certain to see the method applied somewhat generally in schoolroom practice to determine the mental capacity and effect proper grade classification. Intelligence testing is also certain to play an important part in educational and vocational guidance. The question now is not, are intelligence tests of value, but how many teachers and principals be made masters of their use? To those responsible for the administration of both public and private education, the question has become, what modifications of educational procedure will be necessary in consequence of the new light on mental development and schoolwork which intelligence measurements have revealed? The questions of promotions, proper grading, types of courses of study, the skipping of grades, overaged children, juvenile delinquency, vocational guidance, special classes, and the proper education of gifted and subnormal children have all acquired an entirely new meaning in the light of the results which the measurement of intelligence has already produced. In The Measurement of Intelligence, the author reduced the tests and the procedure for giving them to simple language, so that from a study of the book any careful student could be trained to give them. In the present volume he has done an even more significant thing. Viewed either from the point of view of the teacher in our schools or from that of the principal or superintendent responsible for their administration. In this book he has set forth in equally simple language, backed up by the results of a number of concrete studies and illustrated by curves, tables, and descriptions of many individual pupils who have been tested and studied, the educational significance of intelligence, the great difference in the intelligence of school children, and what may be expected from and what ought to be done for pupils of different degrees of intellectual capacity. The book has been written primarily for the grade teacher, and, as an introduction to the study of the measurement of intelligence, its greatest usefulness probably will be as a book for teacher study clubs and state reading circles, and as an introductory textbook for students in normal schools. A careful study of this book by the teachers of a city or state would contribute wonderfully to the intelligent handling of children, and the study of it by prospective teachers would open up entirely new conceptions as to educational procedure and would lead to a far more satisfactory direction of the exceptional children found in every school. The book will also prove of much value to parents interested in the education of their children, and especially to those whose children vary much in either direction from the normal. While written primarily for the teacher in service and for parents interested in the mental development of their children, the book ought also to prove illuminating to principals and superintendents of schools generally, by the way of suggesting to them more intelligent educational procedure in the classification and promotion of children and the administration of courses of study. Elwood P. Cubberley. Preface. This book has been written for the rank and file of teachers, school supervisors, and normal school students. Its purpose is to illustrate the large individual differences in original endowment which exist among school children and to show the practical bearing of these differences upon the everyday problems of classroom management and school administration. It does not treat, except incidentally, the psychological principles underlying intelligence tests. Some of these problems the writer has touched upon elsewhere. The technique of giving the tests of the revised Binet scale and the general significance of mental tests for education have been set forth in some detail in another volume of this series, The Measurement of Intelligence, which should be read in connection with the present volume. In the preparation of this volume, the writer has drawn heavily upon the data from investigations made by a number of his students at Stanford University. His debt to them is very great, not only for the generous way in which they have placed valuable data at his disposal, but, if possible, even more for the loyalty and enthusiasm with which they have worked together in carrying through cooperative undertakings of the most laborious nature. What a single individual working alone can accomplish in research with mental tests is well nigh infinitesimal. Substantial progress can come only from the cooperative work of many on closely allied problems. This volume is in large measure the outcome of studies made by various members of the author's classes in intelligence tests during the years 1916 to 1917 and 1917 to 1918. The central topic for each year being the relation of school success to intelligence. Students who have contributed important data to the various chapters include the following: Virgil E. Dixon, Tests of First Grade Pupils; W. M. Proctor, Tests of High School Pupils; Irene Cuneo, Tests of Kindergarten Children; Margaret Hopwood Hubbard, Tests of Superior Children; O. S. Hubbard, Tests of Fifth Grade Pupils; Isabel Preston, Analysis of Discrepancies Between Mental Age and School Success; J. K. Flanders, Tests of Express Company Employees; H. E. Nolan, Tests of Unemployed, Prisoners, and Businessmen; Dr. J. Harold Williams, Tests of Juvenile Delinquents; Lowry, Howard, and Virgil Dixon, Tests of Retarded Children in the Schools of X County. Various students who cooperated in gathering the data on which the Stanford revision of the Binet scale was based. Among these were Dr. George Ordahl, Dr. Lewis Ellison Ordahl, Grace Lehman, Neva Goldbreath, and Wilfred Talbot. These studies are but parts of a larger investigation of mental growth and individual differences. Several of them are far from complete at the time of this writing. Hundreds of children who have been tested in the vicinity of Stanford University are being followed up in order to discover the value of mental tests as a means of forecasting the educational achievements possible to children of various degrees of intelligence. The investigation also involves the retesting of a large number of children in successive or alternate years in order that typical curves of mental growth may be established. The writer believes that studies of this kind should entirely replace the controversial literature on the value of Binet and other mental tests. There is no other foundation for science, whether pure or applied, than positive, definitely verifiable facts. Psychology is no exception. Another study should be mentioned in this connection, although circumstances prevent the publication of its results at present. With the assistance of a number of Stanford University students, the group intelligence scale devised for use in the United States Army was given during the school year of 1917-18 to approximately 6,000 pupils from the third grade to the senior year of high school. The purpose of the investigation was to secure data on the reliability of the Army tests, and to this end, a large amount of supplementary information regarding each pupil was secured for correlation with the test results. This information included age, grade, years in school, nationality of parents, occupation of father, teachers' ratings of the children and on intelligence, quality of school work, and several character traits. Approximately 600 of the same pupils had been tested with the Stanford revision of the Binet scale. In every respect, the results of this investigation support the data and conclusions present in the various chapters of this volume. The Army tests, which were given to approximately 1,700,000 soldiers, demonstrated beyond question that the methods of mental measurement are capable of making a contribution of great value to military efficiency. That their universal use in the schoolroom is necessary to educational efficiency will doubtless soon be accepted as a matter of course. The fact that the conclusions here offered are based chiefly upon the results secured by the use of the Stanford revision of the Binet-Simon tests must not be understood to imply that the writer looks with disfavor upon other intelligence scales. To the extent that the conclusions are valid at all, they can be confirmed by any system of tests which affords a reasonably accurate measure of general mental ability. However, it is not the purpose of this volume to summarize the hundreds of interesting and valuable investigations which have utilized either Binet or other tests of school children. For the most part, such investigations have been directed towards the improvement of methods. The writer's present aim is the more practical one of showing how the results of mental tests may be put to everyday use in the grade classification and in the educational guidance of school children. The author is indebted to Professor R.M. Yerkes for reading several chapters of the manuscript and for many helpful criticisms. Stanford University, March 1, 1919. End of the preface to The Intelligence of School Children. Read by Leon Harvey. Chapter 1 of The Intelligence of School Children by Lewis Terman. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Leon Harvey. The Intelligence of School Children, Chapter 1. Some Principles of Intelligence Testing. The Binet tests, a method of assessing intelligence. In order to find out how much gold is contained in a given vein of quartz, it is not necessary to uncover all the ore and extract and weigh every particle of the precious metal. It is sufficient merely to ascertain by borings the linear extent of the lode and to take a small amount of the ore to the laboratory of an assayer, who will make a test and render a verdict of so many ounces of gold per ton of ore. A half-century ago, Francis Galton predicted that it would sometime be possible to obtain a general knowledge of the intellectual capacities of a man by sinking shafts, as it were, at a few critical points. Already, Galton's dream is in process of realization, for in the last decade mental testing has become one of the most fruitful branches of psychological science. The credit for pointing the way belongs largely to the French psychologist, Alfred Binet, who, after more than 15 years of patient research, gave to the world in 1908 a system of mental tests now known as the Binet-Simon Intelligence Scale. In various revised forms, the method has come into general use in public schools, institutions for defectives, prisons, reform schools, and juvenile courts in the United States and in Europe. Our debt to Binet is very great, for he succeeded in bringing psychology down from the clouds and making it useful to men. The Binet scale is made up of an extended series of tests in the nature of problems, success in which demands the exercise of the intellectual processes. As left by Binet, the scale consists of 54 tests, ranging in difficulty from tests which are passed by the average child of 3 years to tests which are difficult enough for the average adult. The Stanford revision has increased the number of tests to 90 and has extended the scale far enough to measure the intelligence of superior adults. The 90 tests in the revised scale constitute an extremely variegated series. This is necessary, since their purpose is to measure the subject's general intelligence, not his special ability in a particular line. They include tests of memory, language, comprehension, size of vocabulary, orientation in time and space, eye-hand coordination, knowledge about familiar things, judgment, ability to find likenesses and differences between common objects, arithmetical reasoning, resourcefulness and ingenuity in difficult practical situations, ability to detect absurdities, apperception, the speed and richness of association of ideas, the power to combine the dissected parts of a form board or a group of ideas into a unitary whole, the capacity to generalize from particulars, the ability to deduce a rule from connected facts, etc. Thus the tests give a kind of composite picture of the subject's general mental ability, and since standards of comparison have been established for each of the individual tests by trying it out on hundreds of unselected normal children of all ages, it is possible to express the total result of an examination in terms of mental age norms. Why a mental test is significant. Are we justified in attributing real diagnostic significance to the little intellectual stunts called for by an intelligence scale? Some of these may even appear trivial. What does it signify, for example, whether a given 10-year-old subject names 40 words or 100 words in 3 minutes? Whether he puts together the parts of a form board in 30 seconds or in 2 minutes? Whether he defines 30 words or 60 words of a 100-word list? Whether his definitions of words are stated in terms of use or in terms of superior to use? Whether a series of 5 digits or only a series of 3 digits can be repeated backwards after a single auditory presentation? whether there are 3, 2, 1, or no successes in the attempt to draw a diamond-shaped figure from copy. The secret lies in a standardization of the tests upon normal children of different ages. Without such a standardization, the tests would mean nothing. Standardization is coming to play the same role in psychology that it has long played in the various branches of applied science. The architect or bridge engineer plans his structure with constant reference to foot-pounds of strain which various materials will withstand. The physician analyzes a drop of blood and by comparison of corpuscle count and hemoglobin with the norms for health and disease is able to render an important diagnosis. The psychologist working with mental tests may be compared with the paleontologist who finds in a gravel bed of some prehistoric age a skull cap, a fragment of jaw, and a broken humerus. Although the layman might not even recognize the human origin of such remnants, the paleontologist is able to tell us that the bones are those of a middle-aged male, that the species to which he belonged has not yet learned to stand erect, that he probably did not know the use of fire. Worn teeth indicate that he has subsisted on uncooked foods, that his intelligence was inferior, cranial contents only 2/3 that of modern man, and that he had probably evolved but limited power of speech, diminutive points of attachments for the speech muscles. A little technical acquaintance with the standards of shape, size, and structure of human bones has transformed the meaningless fragments into a missing link, Homo neanderthalensis. Perhaps no two things could be more alike to casual inspection than the balls of two thumbs. Yet one who has been taught to read fingerprints can ordinarily find from 40 to 70 separate and individually sufficient points of identification. Just as many a man has been hanged on the evidence of his fingerprints, so many an individual might safely be committed to an institution for the feeble-minded on the evidence of 10 or a dozen tests which have been standardized according to age norms. The meaning of mental age. Both the individual tests of the Binet scale and the scale as a whole have been standardized on the basis of age norms. The tests themselves are located in age groups in such a way as to bring it about that the average child of 8 years will earn by the scale a mental age of 8 years, the average 12-year-old a mental age of 12 years, etc. Such an arrangement was arrived at empirically by trying out a series of tests upon hundreds of normal children of different ages. The Stanford revision, for example, was based on tests of 1,700 children and 400 adults. To illustrate the use of the scale, let us suppose we are testing a child of 8 years. If our subject passes successfully as far as the average child of 8 years, we say that his mental age is 8 years, or in this case normal. If he goes as far as the average 10-year-old, we say that his mental age of 10 years. If he earns no more credit than the average 6-year-old, his mental age is 6 years. Binet merely took a standard of comparison which everyone uses, namely the standard of age, and made it definite by finding out what intellectual performances representative children of different ages are capable of. It is necessary that the reader should at the onset arrive at a correct understanding of what the term mental age is and is not intended to signify. Two misconceptions are to be avoided. 1. That each mental age is a separate and qualitatively distinct level of mental attainment, contrasting markedly with both the mental age which precedes it and that which follows it. Such use of the term is not in harmony with the facts. Mental development is consecutive and gradual. There is probably no mental power, capacity, or function which has a Minerva birth. The faculty in question develops first in rudimentary form, then grows gradually stronger and more definite until, by imperceptible stages, it reaches a state of maturity. 2. Another misunderstanding comes from the assumption that those who use the term believe a given mental age is a stage of development which all normal individuals pass through at the corresponding actual age. Such a belief would imply that at the age of 10 years, for example, all children who do not belong to some special type, defective, genius, etc., should be found at the 10-year mental age, 8-year children at the 8-year mental age, etc. It is one of the main purposes of this book to show how widely children of a given age differ in mental age and how greatly children of adjacent ages overlap each other in mental age. The real meaning of the term is perfectly straightforward and unambiguous. By a given mental age, we mean that degree of general mental ability which is passed by the average child of corresponding chronological age. Mental age a basis for school grading. The significance of mental age for the teacher lies in the fact that it can be used as a basis for grading the pupils so as to secure class groups of homogeneous ability. As will be shown in succeeding chapters, the pupils of given grades, or even the pupils of one grade in a single classroom, are far from equal in general intelligence or in ability to master the schoolwork. Generally speaking, not far from a fourth of pupils in any given grade have a mental level too low to make satisfactory work in that grade possible, while another fourth have reached a mental level which would enable them to succeed in a higher grade. The intelligence quotient. The mental age merely indicates a level of development which a child has reached at a given time. Considered apart from chronological age, it does not tell us whether a child is bright, dull, or average. Of 3 children all testing at the mental age of 8 years, 1 might very well be exceptionally superior, 1 average, and 1 feeble-minded. Such would be the case if their chronological ages were 6, 8, and 12 years. In addition to an index of absolute mental level, we need an index of relative brightness, such as the intelligence quotient, IQ, which is a ratio of mental age to chronological age. The 6-year-old of 8-year mental age has an IQ of 8 out of 6, or 133. The 12-year-old with a mental age of 8 years, an IQ of 812, or 67. In computing the IQ of an adult subject, years of chronological age in excess of 16 are disregarded, as the development of native intelligence seems practically to cease not far from this age. An idea of how greatly the school children differ in brightness is shown by the analysis of the IQs of 1,000 representative children, in which it was found that the lowest 1% go to 70 or below, the highest 1% reach 130 or above. The lowest 2% go to 73 or below. The highest 2% reach 128 or above. The lowest 3% go to 76 or below. The highest 3% reach 125 or above. The lowest 5% go to 78 or below. The highest 5% reach 122 or above. The lowest 10% go to 85 or below. The highest 10% reach 116 or above. The lowest 15% go to 88 or below. The highest 15% reach 113 or above. The lowest 20% go to 91 or below. The highest 20% reach 110 or above. The lowest 25% go to 92 or below. The highest 25% go to 103 or above. The lowest 33% go to 95 or below. The highest 33% reach 106 or above. The intelligence quotient, a basis for prediction. Just as mental age indicates a school grade in which a child normally belongs at a given time, so the IQ is the basis for prediction in regard to the child's later mental development. The possibility of such a prediction comes from the fact that the IQ has been found in the large majority of cases to remain fairly constant, at least for the ages between 3 or 4 and 14 or 15. For illustration, we will take the case of a 4-year-old child who is found to have a mental age of 5 years and whose IQ is therefore 125. The probability is that this child will continue to have a mental age not far from 25% above his chronological age, with the consequences which may be expressed as follows. Table is displayed with 3 columns: chronological age, probable mental age, probable school ability. Chronological age 4 years, probable mental age 5 years, probable school ability upper kindergarten. Chronological age 6 years, probable mental age 7.5 years, probable school ability second school grade. Chronological age 8 years, probable mental age 10 years, probable school ability high 4th grade. Chronological age 10 years, probable mental age 12.5 years, probable school ability low 7th grade. Chronological age 12 years, probable mental age 15 years, probable school ability first year high school. It would of course be absurd to expect the IQ to maintain itself at an absolutely constant figure. Fluctuations occur for at least 3 reasons. 1. There may be in exceptional cases a certain amount of regularity in the actual rate of mental development. 2. The results of a test may be influenced to some extent by the conditions under which it is given, the state of a child's health, his attitude towards the test, fatigue, and other temporary or accidental factors. Retests after a brief interval indicate that errors from this source are ordinarily not large. 3. There is inevitably a certain amount of error in every IQ rating, due to imperfections in the scale used. If the scale has been so standardized that it yields mental ages which are too low, the IQ found will be too low. If the scale errs in the direction of being too generous, the resulting IQ will be too high. A scale may err in one direction at one level, and in the opposite direction at another level. It was the most serious fault of the original Binet scale that in the lower range of tests it yielded mental ages which were too high, and in the upper range mental ages which were too low. The effect of such errors is greatly to exaggerate the amount of fluctuation to which mental growth is subject. It was the main purpose of the Stanford revision to reduce these constant errors. Chapter 11 shows in detail the degree of constancy which may be expected for the IQ when the standard revision is used. While the law of constancy is subject to minor revisions, few things are more certain than the essential untruth of the widespread belief that mental development knows no regularity, and that the dullard of today becomes a genius of tomorrow. The fact is that, apart from minor fluctuations due to temporary factors, and apart from occasional instances of arrest or deterioration due to acquired nervous disease, the feeble-minded remain feeble-minded, the dull remain dull, the average remain average, and the superior remain superior. There is nothing in one's equipment, with the exception of character, which rivals the IQ in importance. Effect of environment on the IQ. The question is always raised whether, in estimating a child's intelligence on the basis of the IQ, it is not necessary to make allowance for the influence of social environment. For example, it is often argued that the child cannot know his age if he has never heard it, cannot read and report the memory passages if he has never attended school, cannot count from 20 to 1 if he has never been taught to count from 1 to 20, cannot name the days of the week or the months of the year unless he has heard others name them, and that therefore the IQ can have little significance except possibly as an index of the subject's social and educational environment.
It is of course true that an individual who for his entire life had been entirely deprived of human environment,
assuming such a thing is possible, could not pass a satisfactory Binet test, however normal his original endowment may have been. To use an extreme illustration, a child of 10 years who had been reared in a cage, whose wants had been supplied while he was asleep or by means of ingenious mechanical contrivances, who has never seen a human being, could hardly be expected to make a brilliant showing in defining words in the vocabulary test, detecting absurdities, repeating sentences, reading the Binet passage, answering comprehension questions, or naming 60 words. We may go further and assume that such a subject would be as little successful with the 3-year as with the 10-year test. Needless to say, the Binet scale was not intended for subjects of the type we have just described. Its use in a given case takes for granted that the ordinary and all but the inevitable social contacts have been made, that the subject is not deaf or blind, and that he has had reasonable opportunity to learn the language in which the tests are given. Children who have attended school for any considerable time meet all of these requirements, whatever the social status of the home.
as a matter of fact, limited acquaintance with the language employed in the examination does not put the subject at great disadvantage in many of the tests.
In some it does, and in testing subjects who are under this handicap, the vocabulary test and a few others may very well be omitted. Following are 2 illustrations which show that the validity of the scale does not hinge entirely upon the subject's knowledge of English. 1. Coase tested a Belgian refugee child of 9 years who had been in America but 2 years. Although this child's acquaintance with the English language was very limited, the IQ earned on the Stanford Binet scale was 99. The child was also doing schoolwork of average quality in the 4th grade. 2. Dixon tested a Japanese boy, aged 5 years, 2 months, who had never attended school and who had little opportunity to learn English. Yet this boy earned a mental age of 7 years and an IQ of 133. That lack of schooling does not prevent a subject from earning an average or superior score in the test is shown by the cases of SS and Gypsy Mary. SS was tested at the age of 7 years. He had never been to school, and although his home advantages were excellent, he had no formal instruction and had never learned to read. The parents believed, perhaps rightly, that the important needs of childhood, apart from simple moral instruction, are food, fresh air, and freedom from play. Nevertheless, S earned a mental age of 10 years, 8 months, and an IQ of 153. In 1916, a gypsy girl of 16 years was given the Stanford Binet test in a clinic in Oakland, California. This girl had been stolen by the gypsies when she was about 4 years old and lived with them continuously until a few days before the test was made and had never attended school. The IQ found was approximately 100. It is not denied that the cultural status of the home, even apart from heredity, may affect the result of the test to some extent, although the influence has never been accurately determined. If it were considerable, we should find a marked rise of IQ in the case of children who had been removed from an inferior to a satisfactory home environment. Our data on this point are not extensive, but of a dozen or more children of this kind whom we have retested, not one showed improvement. 2 such children, Walter and Frank, have been under observation for several years. Until the age of 5 and 7 years, they lived in an exceptionally poor home. The mother was dull, the father illiterate and a drunkard. Both of the parents died within a year, and the boys were adopted by a woman of decidedly more than average ability who treated them as her own sons. At the time of adoption, one tested at 73, the other at 82. 4 years later, the IQs were 70 and 77. It is a general rule that children of borderline intelligence improve little, if at all, in IQ as they get older, notwithstanding their increased school experience and the extra attention they receive in special classes. That the environment of the home affects the results of the test but little is further shown by the fact that occasionally in a very inferior home all of the children except one test low, as would be expected, while that one tests exceptionally high. In one such family, Portuguese, there are 3 children who test between 76 and 88, while the brother of these tests at 130. The latter is making a very superior record in high school, which he entered at the age of 13 years. The others have not been able to complete the 8th grade. All have been in the same home environment and the same educational opportunities. Scales for group testing. To test each year the intelligence of all the children by the Binet method would involve a larger task than the school is likely to undertake. There is accordingly a wide field for tests which have been applied to an entire group or class at once. The various scales have been devised for this purpose.
The group scales are given as written tests and can be applied to an entire class of 50 or more pupils in about an hour.
To score the records requires about 10 minutes for each pupil, or a total of about 5 or 6 hours for a class of average size. This can be done evenings or at odd times. Most group scales have the advantage of requiring little special psychological training either for giving the tests or scoring them. An unfortunate limitation of such scales is that they are not satisfactory in the lower grades where the need for testing is greatest. As measures of intelligence, they are probably somewhat less accurate than scales for individual testing, but their obvious advantages makes them deserving of wide use with pupils of the upper grades in high school. However, no group scale will ever do away with the necessity of individual testing. Rather, it makes the need for individual testing more obvious. All the pupils in the 4th grade and beyond should be given a test by the group method every year, and those whose scores are either very high or very low in the group examination should be given a Binet test. As will be shown later, Chapter 4, it is highly desirable that every pupil be given a mental test within the first half year of his school life. End of Chapter 1 of The Intelligence of School Children. Read by Leon Harvey. Chapter 2 of The Intelligence of School Children by Lewis Terman. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information on to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Leon Harvey. Chapter 2. Amount and Significance of Individual Differences. Individual differences exist for all traits. When many unselected children of a given age are examined for any trait, large individual differences are found. This is true whether the trait in question is height, weight, strength, lung capacity, number of blood corpuscles, hearing, vision, intelligence, courage, conscientiousness, social adaptability, vanity, or any one of 100 others. Figures 1 to 5 illustrate typical individual differences among school children in sense of humor, cheerfulness, evenness of temper, quality of schoolwork, and ability to give sustained attention. The graph shows the upper percent of pupils who were classified by their teachers as very inferior, inferior, average, superior, or very superior in regard to each of the traits. The above graphs represent the distribution of teachers' ratings, that is, estimates based on personal observation of the pupils rated. Actual measurement of the traits would have been preferable to ratings, had such measurements been possible, but there are still many domains of mind and character for which measuring scales have not been devised. It may be argued that the individual differences represented in the above graphs are spurious, that they merely reflect the varying degrees of error in judgment of those who furnish the ratings. It is an extremely significant fact, however, that whenever we succeed in devising a method for actually measuring a mental trait, as large individual differences are found for it as such physical traits as height or weight. The latter are of course susceptible of as accurate measurement as practical purposes are likely to demand.
The progress of children through the grades of a school system can be measured in terms of age grade status with sufficient accuracy.
In the case of intelligence also, the individual differences can be measured perhaps less accurately than height, yet far more accurately than they can be estimated on the basis of common observation. Figure 6 illustrates typical differences among 10-year-old boys in height. Figure 7 typical differences among 10-year-old boys in ability to win promotions in school. Figure 8 typical differences among 12-year-old boys in IQ. And Figure 9 typical differences among 1,458 children as shown by teachers' ratings for intelligence. Attention is directed to the fact that individual differences are equally in evidence for the 4 traits. The causes of individual differences in school progress. In the case of a physical trait such as height, perhaps few would deny that the differences found represent in the main differences in original endowment. That the progress children make through the grades of a school system is also chiefly dependent upon original endowment is neither so obvious nor so generally believed. The common opinion seems to be that nearly all children are capable of satisfactorily accomplishing 8 grades of schoolwork in 8 years, and that if they fail to do so, it is because of faulty school management. The remedies most often proposed for the prevention of retardation are better attendance laws, school census reform, extension and improvement of medical inspection, flexible grading, and adaptations of the course of study. That reform in all these lines is needed for other reasons as well as for the reduction of retardation will be omitted by all. We are beginning to learn, however, that all of these measures combined are powerless to reduce greatly the number of overage children in the grades, notwithstanding the persistent campaign which has been waged against the evils of retardation for the last dozen years. The number of retardates remains today much the same as it was when the campaign began. We are justified in raising the question whether the most important cause of retardation has been located, and whether it is one that can be removed.
In the various chapters of this book, certain data from intelligence tests will be analyzed in the attempt to formulate an answer to the above question.
The facts which will be presented point fairly definitely to the conclusion that the differences which have been found to exist among children in physical traits are paralleled by equal differences in mental traits, particularly intelligence. It will be shown that these innate differences in intelligence are chiefly responsible for the problem of school laggard, that the so-called retarded children on whom we have expended so much sympathy are in reality nearly always above the grade where they belong by mental development, and that the real retardates are the underage children, who are generally found from 1 to 3 grades below the location which their mental development would warrant. In other words, it will be shown that the retardation problem is exactly the reverse of what it is popularly supposed to be. Overlapping of mental ages in the different grades. The extent of the school's failure to grade children accordingly to their ability will be evident from an examination of Figure 10, which shows the actual distribution of mental ages disclosed by the Stanford-Binet scale in the first grade. The 5th grade and the first year of high school in typical public school systems of California. It will be seen that not only do the first grade children greatly overlap those of the 5th grade and 5th grade children those of the first year of high school, but that the brightest child in the first grade has all but reached a point in mental ability corresponding to that of the lowest pupil in the high school. The brightest of the 5th grade pupils is above the median mental level for the first year of high school, and the brightest of the first grade reaches the median for the 5th grade. That there are children in the first grade as old chronologically as the youngest in the 8th grade is generally understood and deplored, but few teachers are aware of the fact that mental ages are scattered through the grades hardly less promiscuously. Table 1 shows the grade distribution by mental age of 676 unselected pupils below the high school who are mentally 8 years old or older. The failure of school grading to give groups of homogeneous chronological age is a matter of hardly any importance compared with its failure to give groups of homogeneous mental ability. The chronologically old and the chronologically young may and often do belong together. The mentally old and the mentally young do not. Notwithstanding the sifting which takes place at the end of each school year, the resulting classification of children has been so far from successful that, generally speaking, the lowest 25% of pupils in any grade belong mentally in a lower grade and the highest 25% in a higher grade. Only the middle half are classified approximately where they should be. Usually more than 15% are at least 2 grades removed from the one in which they belong by mental age. The tendency to promote by age. It was stated in an earlier part of this chapter that the grades progress of the school child is governed largely by original endowment. However, facts such as those just presented show that endowment is by no means the sole factor, for if it were, children would be more correctly graded according to ability. The other factor is the persistent tendency of teachers to promote by the calendar. The dull are allowed to become somewhat retarded, but are nevertheless promoted beyond their ability to do the work. Occasionally, the brightest are allowed to become accelerated, but comparatively rarely, and almost never as much as they deserve. Here are 2 children, both in the 5th grade, who offer a typical illustration. A. Boy aged 14-3, mental age 8-6, IQ 60. Years in school 7.5, quality of schoolwork very inferior. Grade status on the usual basis of reckoning, retardation of 3 years. In reality, this boy is accelerated 2 years, for his mental level of 8.5 is at least 2 years below that necessary for satisfactory work in the high 5th grade. B. Girl. Age 9-8, mental age 13-1, IQ 130. Years in school 3. Quality of schoolwork very superior. Grade status reckoned on the usual basis, 2 years acceleration. This girl is not really accelerated, but retarded, for a mental level of 13 years would enable her to do average work in the 7th grade. The one criterion for fitness for promotion should be ability to meet the requirements of the next higher grade. Pupils of the type of Child A, kept away at tasks that are hopelessly beyond their ability, never learn the meaning of success. Those like Child B miss the mental and moral stimulus which comes from intense application to tasks commensurate with ability. We see how badly misplaced any measure of reform would be which was designed merely to prevent retardation in the usual sense of that term. But what is the solution of the problem of overage children?
Are they to be required to repeat more grades than they now do?
Would not the policy of rigidly holding these children in the grade corresponding to mental age be even more discouraging than the present practice of over-promoting them? It would be unfortunate indeed if we were obliged to choose between the 2 evils. Perhaps another solution is possible if we will only cease to think exclusively in terms of cross-section education. Instead of a single curriculum for all, merely divided into 8 successive levels, it would be better to arrange parallel courses of study for children of different grades of ability. Some such solution seems necessary if we were to adjust schoolwork to the abilities of the children and at the same time avoid the admittedly serious evils of repetition. End of Chapter 3 of The Intelligence of School Children. Read by Leon Harvey. Chapter 3 of The Intelligence of School Children by Lewis Terman. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Leon Harvey. Chapter 3. Individual differences among kindergarten children. Tests were made by Miss Cuneo of 112 children attending 5 kindergarten classes in the cities of San Jose and San Mateo, California. The majority of the pupils came from middle-class homes, a few from each extreme of the social scale. All were American-born. The ages were as follows. Boys, aged 3.5 to 4, 5. Aged 4 to 4.5, 9. Aged 4.5 to 5, 11. Aged 5 to 5.5, 12. Aged 5.5 to 6, 20. Aged 6 to 6.5, 6. Aged 6.5 to 7, 1. Total, 64. Girls, aged 3.5 to 4, 4. Aged 4 to 4.5, 7. Aged 4.5 to 5, 9. Aged 5 to 5.5, 14. Aged 5.5 to 6, 11. Aged 6 to 6.5, 2. Aged 6.5 to 7, 1. Total, 48. Total, ages 3.5 to 4, 9. Aged 4 to 4.5, 16. Aged 4.5 to 5, 20. Aged 5 to 5.5, 26. Aged 5.5 to 6, 31. Aged 6 to 6.5, 8. Aged 6.5 to 7, 2. Total, 112. Range in mental age. Although the total range of actual ages was from 3.5 to 7 years, all but 19 of the pupils were between 4 and 6. As will be seen from Table 2, the range in mental age was greater than this, namely from 3 to 4 to 7. Of the 112 pupils, 5 were mentally below 4 years, 35 between 6 and 7, and 3 above 7. The kindergarten group all but overlaps in mental age the 5th grade group described in Chapter 5. The highest mental age found in the kindergarten was 7-7, the lowest in the 5th grade, 7-9. The chances are that if twice as many had been tested, an actual overlapping would have been found. Comparison of the mental ages of these 112 kindergarten children with the mental ages of 150 unselected 1st grade children tested by Dixon may be made from Figure 11. Nearly a fourth of the kindergarten children equaled or exceeded the median mental age of those in the 1st grade, and more than half equaled or exceeded the lowest fourth of 1st grade children. A large proportion of these kindergarten children have a mental maturity which will enable them to do satisfactory work in the 1st grade. The most abrupt break in the curriculum is that from the kindergarten to the 1st grade. At all other points, every effort is made to bridge the gaps. The transition from 1st grade to 2nd, from 5th to 6th, etc., is almost imperceptible. Even the first year of high school is rapidly being integrated with the last year of the grammar school so as to give the child an unbroken educational path, which he may traverse from the 1st grade to the university. The kindergarten alone holds aloof, worships at the shrine of a special methodological cult, and treats its children as belonging to a different order of human beings. The tests of Dixon and Cuneo show how little justification there is for such an attitude. The fact that nearly a fourth of kindergarten children do not differ at all in mental ability from average 1st grade children, and that a fourth of 1st grade children are on par with a median kindergarten child, indicates that it would be well for the teachers of these two grades to come to some kind of understanding. Distribution of intelligence quotients. The IQs of the 112 children listed below in the order from highest to lowest. The range is from 61 to 152, that is, from feeble-mindedness to very unusual superiority. While only one could be certainly classed as a defective, there are at least 3 others who are at the borderline of mental deficiency. The lowest 25% fall to 91 or below, the highest 25% reach 117 or above. The median is 106. Figure 12 shows graphically the number falling in the IQ groups 60 to 69, 70 to 79, etc. Sex differences. Is there a sex difference in intelligence at the kindergarten age? We have asked many kindergarten teachers this question and have often received an affirmative answer. The opinion seems to prevail that girls, even at this early age, are somewhat more precocious than boys. Comparison of Miss Cuneo's 65 boys and 47 girls suggest that this opinion may not be without foundation. The medians and upper and lower quartiles were as follows. A table is displayed with boys and girls going across the page with median, lower quartile, and upper quartile. For boys, median 103, lower quartile 90, upper quartile 114. Girls, median 108, lower quartile 96.5, upper quartile 116.5. Although the brightest subject tested was a boy, the median for girls is 5 points higher than for boys. This is not a large difference, but it is appreciable. It is probable that, age for age, girls are slightly superior to boys in the kind of intellectual ability measured by the usual type of intelligence test, This conclusion is borne out by the results of many other investigations by the test method. It is also in harmony with sex comparisons based on teachers' ratings and school marks. In the present study, 56 of the boys and 47 of the girls were rated for intelligence, and 46 of the boys and 36 of the girls for quality of school work. The results were as follows. Table is displayed on the page. Teachers' ratings on intelligence. 3 columns are inferior and very inferior percent, average percent, superior and very superior percent. Boys, inferior and very inferior, 17.9%. Average, 62.5%. Superior and very superior, 19.8%. Girls, inferior and very inferior, 6.4%. Average, 61.7%. Superior and very superior, 31.9%. Table is displayed. Teachers' ratings on schoolwork. Boys, inferior and very inferior, 23.9%. Average, 58.7%. Superior and very superior, 17.4%. Girls, inferior and very inferior, 8.3%. Average, 58.3%. Superior and very superior, 33.3%. Although the superiority of the girls in the tests is very slight, sometimes almost negligible, we have found in something like a dozen separate studies that for a given age or grade, the girls invariably make a significantly better showing than boys when rated by their teachers, either for intelligence or for quality of schoolwork. We do not attempt to say whether girls make a better use of their intelligence or whether they are more responsive and so appear brighter than they are. Both causes may enter. Significance of the tests. What do the large individual differences revealed by the tests signify in terms of future educational achievement? It is possible, as a result of a 40-minute test of a child who is only 4 or 5 years old, to forecast with any degree of assurance his educational career. With accuracy, no. In general terms, yes. There is little likelihood that the child who tested at 61 IQ will ever go above median 9-year or 10-year intelligence. On the other hand, the 3 brightest children in the group, who tested as high as 140, could in all probability be made ready for high school by the age of 11 or 12 years. Miss Cuneo retested 77 of her pupils as follows. 1. 25 pupils, interval of 2 days. 2. 21 pupils, interval of half year. 3. 31 pupils, interval of 2 years. The agreement between the first test and the repeated test was very close except in a few cases. The median amount of change in IQ was only 6 points. 1/4 of the subjects showed a change of 3 points or less and 1/4 8 points or more. Of the 31 pupils retested after 2 years, there were 4 who had earned an IQ of 130 or above in the first test. 2 years later, all still tested above 130 and all were doing superior or very superior work in the second grade. 3 of them had gained an extra promotion. Of the 10 at the other extreme who had earned an IQ of 100 or less, not 1 had gained an extra promotion. However, there is a serious source of error to guard against when testing children of this age.
Kindergarten children are in the bashful stage and are likely to respond only with silence to tests which they could easily pass.
The examiner must, therefore, take care to get into rapport with the child if he would avoid the error of mistaking difference for lack of intelligence. Special need of tests in the kindergarten. There is one reason why tests are more necessary in the kindergarten than anywhere else if the intellectual differences which exist among pupils are to be discovered. In other school grades, the work itself constitutes a kind of intelligence test. The first grade child who cannot learn to read or the fourth grade child who cannot learn long division is readily recognized as inferior. The work of the average kindergarten offers no such clear-cut criterion for intellectual normality. The games, drawing, sandpile activities, and cardboard construction may disclose certain differences, but these are vague and lack meaning. This difficulty was reflected in teachers' ratings of the kindergarten children for intelligence. When asked to estimate the intelligence of each child on the usual scale of 5, very superior, superior, average, inferior, and very inferior, the teachers protested that there was almost nothing in the kindergarten work on which they could base a judgment. The ratings on intelligence were finally secured, but they correlated with IQs only to the extent of 0.29. There is not more than half the correlation usually found in the grades above the kindergarten. The correlation of IQs in the ratings for quality of schoolwork was only 0.27. and that between mental age and ratings for quality of school work, only 0.43. Certain disagreements between IQs and ratings were due to failure to take account of age differences. The 6-year-old is rated superior on the IQ about 10 to 20 points lower than a 4.5-year-old must have to reach this class. The former gets into the superior classes easily with 100 IQ, as does the latter with 115 or 120. The following cases illustrate this error. GJ, age 3.8, mental age 4.2, IQ 113, was rated as inferior. ML, also tested at 113, but aged 5.9, was rated superior. NW, age 3.11, mental age 4.3, IQ 109, is rated inferior. JM, age 6.11, mental age 6.6, IQ 94, is rated superior. MS, age 4.1, mental age 5.4, IQ 130, is rated inferior. JP, age 6.3, mental age 6.10, IQ 109, is rated very superior. The kindergarten's demand on intelligence. The correlation between mental age and quality of work is shown in Table 3. Table 3 is displayed. Correlation between mental age and quality of schoolwork for 80 kindergarten children. Correlation 0.43. It will be seen that although there is a marked tendency for those of low mental age to do inferior work and for those of high mental age to do superior work, children of every mental age from 3.5 to 7.5 are rated as doing average work. This can only mean that the activities of the kindergarten do not make very serious demands on general mental ability.
Is this a legitimate ground of criticism of the pre-primary curriculum?
The answer will depend upon one's philosophy of the kindergarten. There is much to be said for the kindergarten as a combination of nursery and a place for socialized play. From this point of view, its purpose is to serve the life of instinct and emotion rather than to nourish intelligence. It is a point of view which is attractive because it has the support of sentiment. Certainly, no one will wish to see children of 4 or 5 years harnessed to intellectual work to the exclusion of play. This, however, is not the only alternative.
Perhaps some of the kindergarten activities could be so adapted as to neglect less than they now do the appeal to intelligence.
Possibly a half hour of the day could be advantageously reversed for work of a somewhat more intellectual character than the hopping, skipping, and digging or busy work of the typical conservative kindergarten, much of which has little to commend it from any point of view. Madame Montessori's injection of more serious activities into the kindergarten would seem to mark a distinct advance. The contrast between the usual work of the kindergarten and that of the first grade could be justified only on the theory that the child of 4 or 5 years is all instinct and emotion, and that suddenly, at the age of 6 or 7, he is brought by a sudden metamorphosis into the life of intellect. A comparison of the intelligence tests of kindergarten and first grade children shows how untenable such a theory is. But if advancements are due on the part of the kindergarten, they are perhaps just as much needed in the first grade. The chasm must be bridged from both sides. The mere fact that a child has passed his 6th birthday is not a sufficient justification for robbing him of all the freedom he's enjoyed in kindergarten and home. End of Chapter 3 of The Intelligence of School Children by Lewis Terman. Read by Leon Harvey. Chapter 4 of The Intelligence of School Children by Lewis Terman. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Leon Harvey. Chapter 4. Individual Differences in the First Grade. The critical importance of the first grade. The first grade is the most critical in the school system. It is the place above all others where the raw material with which the school is to work should be correctly evaluated. Success or failure for the child's school career hangs often upon his success or failure in the first grade. In a way, school administrators appreciate this fact. Effort is usually made to place the best teachers in charge of the entering pupils. School doctors, school nurses, and school dentists are commonly urged to give special attention to the younger children. Nevertheless, it is in the first grade that retardation scores its worst record. In the average city, approximately a fourth of the pupils fail a promotion at the end of the first year. Schools for backward children ordinarily do not draw from classes below the third grade. By this time, the dull pupil is already a lost cause. Special classes for superior children, when they exist at all, are too likely to confine their efforts to bright pupils whose intellectual progress has already been retarded by several years spent in the educational lockstep. By this time their intellectual ardor has cooled, and the edges of their mental faculties have been dulled. We cannot deny that the task which faces first-grade teachers and supervisors is very difficult. Every 12 months, the schools of the United States receive something like 3 million fresh recruits. What we are urging is the immediate assaying of all this material year after year. The task is difficult, but we believe it is worthwhile. A model study of school grading. The facts which will be presented are from an investigation by Dixon, who has analyzed the results of nearly 1,000 Stanford Binet tests of first-grade children. This account will include the results of the first 150 tests only. The group included all the pupils found in the first grade in 5 different schoolrooms in the vicinity of Stanford University. The rooms will be designated by the letters A, B, C, D, and E. Room A included chiefly pupils of Spanish and Italian descent, but American-born. Room B represented a mixture of races, with American predominating. Room C was similar to A, but contained a considerable number of Portuguese, in addition to a few Italian and Spanish. Room D drew mainly from the upper and middle social classes of American extraction. The children of Room E were all from an exceptionally well-to-do residential district. Dixon used the tests only as a point of departure for a more intensive study of the pupils. His purpose was the practical one of trying to translate individual differences into terms of classroom management. Accordingly, the cooperation of the teachers was enlisted in the collection of a large amount of supplementary data regarding each child, including 1. Date of entering school, 2. Occupation of the father, 3. Nationality of each parent, 4. The teacher's estimate of the child's intelligence, 5. The teacher's rating of the quality of the school work, 6. The teacher's rating of each child, on a scale of 5, as in the case of intelligence and school work, on each of the following 24 traits: power to give sustained attention, persistence, social adaptability, leadership, initiative, evenness of temper, emotional self-control, physical self-control, willpower, cheerfulness, courage, sense of humor, obedience, conscientiousness, dependability, intellectual modesty, unselfishness, cooperativeness, speed, industry, personal appearance, popularity among fellows, self-expression, accuracy. Mental age differences. The ages extended from 5 years and 7 months to 11 years, a range of nearly 5.5 years. The mental age range is even greater, namely from 3 years to practically 11 years. The highest mental age among these first-grade pupils considerably overlaps the lowest we have found in the 8th grade. The number at each mental age is shown in Figure 13. A graph is displayed on the page. Figure 13. Mental age distribution of 149 first-grade children. Mental age necessary for first-grade work. Children are expected to start to school at the age of 6 years. The assumption is that the degree of mental maturity corresponding to this age is necessary for successful work in the first grade. Is this assumption justified? The question can be answered by a comparison of the quality of schoolwork done by the children of different mental ages. The agreement between mental age and the ratings for quality of work done is shown in Table 4. It is evident from this table that mental age is a fairly good index of a child's ability to do the work of the first grade. No child below the mental age of 6 years is rated as doing schoolwork above the average, while of the 22 pupils rated as very inferior in schoolwork, all are below the mental age of 6. A table is displayed on the page, Table 4, showing how quality of work in the first grade depends upon mental age, correlation 0.725. The agreement, however, is not perfect. Of the 41 children who are mentally 7 years or above, 7 are rated as doing inferior work. All but 2 of these are enrolled in rooms D and E, where the average mental age of the pupils is unusually high. The inference is that teachers have judged these pupils by too high a standard of performance. If placed in room A, probably any one of them would rank average or above. On the other hand, 13 of the 92 pupils below the mental age of 6 years are rated as doing school work of average quality. A satisfactory explanation was found in every case. 2 of the 13 were repeaters, one of whom was 10 years old and had been in school over 2 years. Under the circumstances, they would, naturally, be expected to do average work, even though they are slightly below the mental level of 6 years. The other 11 were all enrolled in Class A and B, in both of which the average mental age was extraordinarily low. In Room A, 13 of the 38 pupils were below the mental age of 5.5 years, and in Room B, 18 out of 39. The 11 pupils whose ratings are in question averaged in mental age 5 years and 10 months. It is therefore not surprising that their schoolwork should have been rated as average in the inferior class. From such data as the above, collected from all these 1,000 cases, Dixon concludes that below the mental age of 6 years the child is not fully ready for the first grade, and that below the mental age of 5.5 years the chances that really standard first grade work will be done are practically negligible. We are beginning to see why a fourth of the pupils in the first grade fail of promotion, for Dixon finds 38% below the mental age of 6 years and 27% below 5.5. On the other hand, there are in the first grade many pupils of the other extreme of ability who are kept at work which is too easy to command their best efforts. Of the 150 children, 15, 10%, are above the mental age of 7.5 years. All of these, and in addition perhaps half of the 26 who tested between 7 and 7.5, could quickly be made ready for the second grade. By the present regime, these are injured no less than the inferiors. The influence of age on the ability to do school work. The one condition that the school imposes upon those who would enter is that they shall have passed a given birthday. If the age criterion were adequate, we should invariably find the best records in the first grade made by the oldest pupils and the poorest records by the youngest pupils. The reverse is the case. Of the 39 pupils who were above the chronological age of 7.5 years, only 3 were rated above average in quality of school work. Of the 10 who had reached the age of 8.5 years, none. Conversely, of the 23 who were rated above average in quality of work, 12 were under 6.5 years and 20 were under 7.5 years chronologically. This finding is not new. Everyone who has given mental tests to any considerable number of school children has found that the best pupils in a given grade are almost invariably the youngest, the poorest pupils the oldest. In the present instance this is true, notwithstanding the fact that most of the older pupils are taking the work for the second, third, or fourth time. Some, in fact, had started to school before their youngest classmates were born. Does age give any advantage whatever apart from the degree of mental maturity which has been attained? Or does school success depend entirely upon mental age, except in so far as it is influenced by such extraneous factors as industry, illness, emotional instability, etc.? Dixon attempted to answer this question by comparing the quality of schoolwork done by older, dull pupils with younger, bright pupils of the same mental age. For the comparison he took 2 groups of pupils, all of whose mental ages were between 6 and 7 years. The pupils of one of these groups were also chronologically between 6 and 7 years, with IQs ranging between 96 and 105. The pupils of the older group were between 8 and 9 years chronologically, with IQs ranging from 72 to 84. The average mental age in the 2 groups was almost exactly the same. The comparison gave for the older group an average rating of 3.7 in school work, for the younger group an average rating of 3.12. Since, on our 5-step scale of rating, 3 means average and 2 means superior, it is seen that there is a difference of more than a half step in favor of the younger group. The significance of this finding is enhanced by the fact that the older group had attended school for an average period of 1.9 years, the younger for an average period of less than 1 year. The older group has 2 years the advantage in age, with all the incidental experiences which age brings, and in addition the advantage of a year more school attendance. Nevertheless, their work is less satisfactory than that of the younger pupils who are at the same level of mental age. We have found this to be the rule in a number of similar comparisons. The additional spontaneity and adaptability of young normal pupils slightly outweigh the advantage of the additional experience in schooling which older pupils of the same mental age have enjoyed. The distribution of IQs. The range of IQs for the 150 pupils is 45 to 145. The median IQ is 88, and it is interesting to note that the brightest child and the dullest child are about equidistant from the median. The lowest 25% fall to 77 or below. The highest 25% reach 124 or above. Figure 14 shows the distribution of intelligence quotients grouped in ranges of 10, 40 to 49, 50 to 59, 60 to 69, etc. Figure 14 is displayed on the page, distribution of the 149 first grade children. The low median IQ might be due either to real average inferiority of the pupils tested or to a defect of the scale causing it to yield mental ages too low. That the latter is not the true explanation is indicated by the high average IQ, 107, earned by Miss Cuneo's kindergarten children, who were tested on almost exactly the same part of the scale. All the supplementary data confirm the test results in showing that in 3 of the 5 rooms, enrolling 107 of the 150 pupils, there was an excessive number of children of low mentality. Had only rooms D and E been examined, the scale would have seemed to err in the direction of 2 great E's. Of the 150 children, 21 tested below 70 IQ and 12 below 60. Those below 60 may safely be considered feeble-minded, and probably a majority of those between 60 and 70. Most of the low cases were in 2 rooms. It will be recalled that the teachers were asked to estimate the intelligence of each pupil on the scale of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The extent to which these estimates agree with the test is shown in Table 5. Table 5 is displayed on the page. Agreement between the tests and teachers' estimates of intelligence. Correlation 0.79. The correlation in Table 5, 0.79, is fairly high. By a painstaking analysis of individual cases of disagreement, Dixon was able to show that most of these were caused by the failure of the teachers to take the child's age into account. This is an error which we have found over and over, one from which it seems impossible for teachers to free themselves even when expressly cautioned to do so, as they were in this case. The child of 8 years who had a mental age of 6 years, IQ 75, and is doing almost average work in the first grade is likely to be rated not far from average in intelligence. The teacher forgets that an average child of 8 years ought to be doing average work in the high second or low third grade. How the 5 classes differed. These 5 teachers are expected to accomplish the same work, to turn out a similar product at the end of the year. A comparison of the material with which they are working shows that any such explanation is impossible of realization and unfair to the teachers and to the children. Tables 6 and 7 show how greatly rooms A, B, and C differ from rooms D and E in the mental ages represented. Table 6 is displayed on the page. Significant differences in the mental composition of 5 first grade classes. There are 6 columns down the page with the rooms, the median mental age, the median IQ, the percent below 5.5, the percent above 7, and the percent repeating. Room A, median mental age 60, median IQ 87, percent below 5.5, 0.31, percent above 7, 0.10, percent repeating 0.55. Room B, median mental age 5.7, median IQ 76, percent below 5.5, 0.46, percent above 7, 0.05, percent repeating 0.35. Room C, median mental age 60, median IQ 85, percent below 5.5, 0.20, percent above 7, 0.26, percent repeating 0.56. Room D, median mental age 72, median IQ 108, percent below 5.5, 0.14, percent above 7, 0.6, percent repeating 0.46. Room E, median mental age 78, median IQ 112, percent below 5.5, 0.0, percent above 7, 0.71, percent repeating 0.07. Table 7 is displayed on the page. IQ distribution in the 5 classes. Again, 6 columns displayed down the page with IQs ranging from 135 up to below 60. And room A, room B, room C, room D, and room E. Room A median is 87, room B median 76, room C median 85, room D median 108, Room E median 112. The average mental age in Room E is fully 2 years above that in Room B, and the median IQ 36 points higher. The average child of Room E excels the average child of Room B in brightness as much as an average normal child of 100 IQ excels a feeble-minded child of 66 IQ. Room A has 3 pupils who grade feeble-minded. Room B anywhere from 7 to 13. Room C 2 to 4. Room D possibly 1. And Room E none. Rooms A and C have no pupils who test as high as 120, and Room B only 1. But 21.5% of the pupils of Room D and 28.6% of those in Room E grade this high or higher. These differences in relative endowment are reflected in the number of repeaters found in the 5 rooms. A third of the pupils in Room A and half of those in Room B are incapable of doing standard first-grade work. They are not doing it. The lack of progress on the part of the pupils in Room B was so evident that the teacher was in despair and the superintendent doubted her efficiency. But there was nothing wrong with the teacher. Her task was simply impossible. On the other hand, half the pupils of Room E have reached a level of mental development which would enable them to do the work of the 2nd grade, 3 or 4 of them the work of the 3rd grade. The lot of this teacher is a happy one. Her pupils are able to learn without instruction. When a class is so far above or below the average in ability, we would expect the teacher to be aware of the fact that these teachers were only partially so. It is shown by the distribution of their ratings on school work in the different classes. Although the teacher in Room B correctly rates the work of her pupils very low, the teacher of Room D rates incorrectly more of her pupils below than above average. Plainly, her standard is too high, and it is so because the average mental age in her room is above 7 years. The teacher of Room E complained that 6 of her 14 pupils were not doing what she would consider good work. The average mental age in this class was above 7.5 years. Dixon estimated that average work in Class E was in reality better than superior work in any of the other classes. Sex differences. Of Dixon's 150 subjects, 79 were boys and 71 were girls. Only a small difference was found in the IQs of the sexes, the girls having the advantage of 3 points in median. However, as rated by the teachers for quality of school work, the girls made decidedly the better showing. This was true even when the comparison was between boys and girls of the same mental age. Among the 150 pupils were 15 boys and 11 girls who tested between 95 and 105 IQ. The ages, mental ages, and the IQs of these two groups were almost exactly the same, yet the boys secured an average rating of 3.4, 0.4 below average, the girls an average rating of 2.81, 0.19 above average. That is, boys of average intelligence may be expected to do less than average school work. Girls of average intelligence to do better than average school work. As stated by Dixon, it may be that the school curriculum is better adapted to the needs and interests of girls, that girls excel in industry and application, that girls are more willing to submit to direction in a task, that girls are better behaved than boys, and that school marks are influenced by deportment, that teachers, or women, are better suited to teaching girls than boys, or it may be that any one or a combination of many of the causes that might be mentioned. Racial and social differences. 3 of the 5 rooms, A, B, and C, contained a large element of Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian children. Also a number of North European parentage. Most of these were born in the United States and all spoke English. The median IQs were as follows. Race, Spanish. Number 37, median IQ 78. Portuguese, number 23, median IQ 84. Italian, number 25, median IQ 84. North European, number 14, median IQ 105. American, number 49, median IQ 106. The children were classified as to social status according to the occupation of the father. The classification was based on Tausig's division of occupation into 5 non-competing groups. 1. Professional. 2. Semi-professional or higher business. 3. Skilled. 4. Semi-skilled. And 5. Unskilled. The correlation between IQ and the ratings on social status was found to be 0.48. The median IQ, or classes 4 and 5 taken together, was 82.5. for classes 1 and 2 taken together, 112.5. Only one child in class 5 tested above 115, and only one in class 1 and 2 below 85. 2/3 of these in classes 1 and 2 were above 100, and 7/8 of those in class 4 and 5 below 100. However, bright children do occur in the lower occupational groups, and when they do, they stand out by contrast. Correlation between intelligence and other traits. It will be recalled that as part of the supplementary data, Dixon had the teachers rate their children on 24 mental and moral traits, in addition to intelligence and schoolwork. The interest in such ratings lies in their bearings on the debated question whether good traits tend to go together or whether superiority in certain lines is likely to be offset by inferiority in others. The latter belief is called the theory of compensation. It is commonly thought that the possession of a number of undesirable traits is almost certain to be compensated by marked superiority in other traits. Everyone knows that this is sometimes true in individual cases. If it were the rule, however, there would be negative correlations among some of the traits, and a given individual would show a great deal of unevenness in the ratings received. Such negative correlations were not found. The traits listed below all correlated positively with intelligence and with one another. The correlations with intelligence are shown in Table 8 in order of amount, beginning with the highest. It is interesting to note that sense of humor, power to give sustained attention, persistence, and initiative all correlate highly with intelligence. They probably depend in large measure upon intelligence. The correlation of social adaptability with intelligence is also high, indicating that there is little truth in the theory that bright children tend to be socially queer or outcasts. The low correlation of obedience, unselfishness, and emotional self-control with intelligence are of interest. Table 8 is displayed. Correlation between IQ and teachers' ratings on various mental and moral traits. 2 columns with trait and correlation with IQ. 1. Sense of humor, 0.58. 2. Power to give sustained attention, 0.54. 3. Persistence, 0.53. 4. Initiative, 0.53. 5. Accuracy, 0.52. 6. Willpower, 0.50. 7. Conscientiousness, 0.48. 8. Social adaptability, 0.47. 9. Leadership, 0.44. 10. Personal appearance, 0.44. 11. Cheerfulness, 0.43. 12. Cooperation, 0.43. 13. Physical self-control, 0.42. 14. Industry, 0.40. 15. Courage, 0.39. 16. Dependability, 0.38. 17. Self-expression, speech, 0.37. 18. Intellectual modesty, 0.34. 19. Obedience, 0.34. 20. Popularity among fellows, 0.34. 21. Evenness of temper, 0.31. 22. Emotional self-control, 0.29. 23. Unselfishness, 0.29. 24. Speed, 0.28. As a rule, the ratings given an individual child ran fairly uniform through the list of traits. Few children showed numerous oscillations from high to low ratings. Bright children, as a rule, were rated superior or very superior in nearly all traits, occasionally dropping to average. Very dull children, as a rule, were rated inferior or very inferior in nearly all traits, occasionally rising to average. Figures 15, 16, and 17 reproduced from Dixon's report sample profiles of one bright, one dull, and one average pupil. Figure 15, 16, and 17 are all displayed on the page. Figure 15, typical trait profile of a very bright child. IQ 133, average rating 1.34. Figure 16, typical trait profile of a child of average intelligence. IQ 103, average rating 3.04. Figure 17, typical trait profile of a feeble-minded child. IQ 45, average rating 4.46. Another table is displayed on the following page, Table 9, showing agreement between IQ and average rating on 24 mental, moral, and personal traits, correlation 0.76. So marked was the correlation between IQ and average rating on the 24 traits that knowing only the average of these ratings, one could roughly predict what the IQ would be. As shown in Table 9, the correlation is 0.76. Of the 10 pupils with an average rating above 2, 1 being highest and 5 lowest, not one tested below 110 IQ. Of the 16 with an average as low as 4, none tested as high as 100, and only one as high as 90. Conversely, of the 6 pupils testing 125 or above, none had an average rating below 2.24, and of the 10 pupils testing below 65, none had an average rating as high as 3.24. Predictions regarding school progress. After the tests had been made and all the supplementary data had been analyzed, Dixon made a prediction regarding each child's probable school progress. Following are samples of these predictions. Child number 1, aged 5'10", mental age 6'10", IQ 117, schoolwork 2, low first grade, in school 1/2 year. Forecast, work should continue, superior, should finish 4th grade in 3 to 3.5 years. Child number 15, age 6'4", mental age 5'7", IQ 88, schoolwork 3, low first grade, in school 1 year. Forecast, child is dull and quality of schoolwork will go lower. Present rating of 3 is explained by low average standard in the class, will probably lose 1 year before completing 4th grade. Child number 21, age 82, mental age 6'8", IQ 81, schoolwork 4, low first grade, in school 2 years. Forecast, very dull and probably will not finish 4th grade by age of 14 years, not suited to the regular course of study. Child number 35, age 10-0, mental age 5'1", IQ 51, schoolwork 5, high first grade, in school 3.5 years. Forecast, this child will never reach the 4th grade, should be placed in an institution for the feeble-minded. Child number 122, age 7-6, mental age 10-11, IQ 145, schoolwork 1, high first grade, in school half year. Forecast, should be coached on essentials and moved ahead, may be expected to complete the 4th grade within 2.5 years after entering school and is capable of doing so in 1.5 years. Child number 117, aged 7-8, mental age 7-4, IQ 101, schoolwork 4, high first grade, in school 1 year. Forecast, this boy is average normal, and in an average class he would do satisfactory work without repeating. However, as the average IQ his class is 112, he is likely to lose half a year or more before completing the 4th grade. It is easy enough to make predictions. How well time will justify them is another question. They will be checked annually as long as the children can be followed. Thus far they have been checked up once. A year after tests were made. The findings were, in the large majority of cases, in perfect agreement with the forecast. In a number of cases in which the forecast was not borne out, it could be shown that either 1. The original supplementary information furnished by the teacher was incorrect, age misstated, etc., or 2. The teacher had erred in promoting a child who should not have been promoted, or in holding a child back who should have been allowed to go on. The retarded group. Of the 150 pupils, 33 were retarded, according to the ARIS standard. Dixon examined the data regarding these 33 children with a view to discovering the cause of their retardation. The retarded group was divided into 3 classes. 1. Those showing late entrance. 2. Those who entered at normal age but progressed slowly. And 3. Children showing both late entrance and slow progress. The facts regarding these 3 classes are stated by Dixon as followed. 1. Late entrance. Of the 5 children who show late entrance, only one has normal mental ability, IQ 99. She has made regular progress since entering school and is now doing work of average quality. The remaining 4 are subnormal children mentally, belonging either to the feeble-minded or in the border zone group. The very fact that these 4 children have a low mental level is the most probable cause of their retardation. 2. Normal entrance, slow progress. 18 children show entrance at normal age but slow progress. All of these are repeaters, several for the 3rd or 4th time. The mental level of each one is low. 4 are probably feeble-minded. The rest would classify in the border zone or in the dull normal groups. Only one, IQ 91.7, even approaches the average normal mental level. 3. Both late entrance and slow progress. 10 children show both late entrance and slow progress. 8 of these have low mentality. 1 has a mental level approaching the normal 91 IQ and is now doing average work. 1 has a normal level 97 IQ, and the facts at hand do not suggest any cause of retardation. Of the 33 retarded children, only 2 have normal mentality as shown by the tests. Stated in another way, 93.9% of all the retardation in these 5 rooms is found in children of low mental level. While there may be contributory causes, low mentality is undoubtedly the chief cause of retardation in these 5 rooms of first-grade children. Feasibility of testing all first-grade children. The first task of the school, when it gathers its newcomers together, should be to give each child a mental test to determine the nature of his endowment. The test should then be checked up by a large amount of supplementary data and by an annual appraisement of progress. Granting the desirability of giving every child in the first grade a mental test, is it possible to do so? One is tempted to answer that it is possible because it is necessary. Each teacher may very well test her own pupils, or, if it is preferred, all the testing may be done by a few teachers who have had special training for such work. The latter plan has been followed in Providence, Rhode Island, where during a single school year, almost 1,000 first-grade pupils were tested by teachers specially detailed for the task. It is reported that the experiment has been a great success, that the test showed early why a third of their pupils were failing of promotion in the first grade. As a result of the experiment, the course of study for the first year was differentiated, and the mentally immature pupils were given a work of a pre-primary nature. In the schools of Council Bluffs, Iowa, all the pupils of the kindergarten and primary grades are tested, and entrance to the first grade from the kindergarten is based entirely upon mental age. End of Chapter 4 of The Intelligence of School Children. Read by Leon Harvey. Chapter 5 of The Intelligence of School Children by Lewis Terman. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Leon Harvey. Chapter 5. Individual Differences in the 5th Grade.
Hubbard investigated the amount of heterogeneity in the classes from the 4th to the 8th grades of the Alameda Public Schools.
The study took into account age, race, sex, social status, achievement as shown by school marks, educational measurements, and teachers' ratings on intelligence. Data was secured from approximately 2,000 pupils. Such wide ranges of individual differences were found that it was decided to select 2 classes in the 5th grade for more intensive study by means of the Stanford-Binet tests. The 2 classes were chosen at random. One enrolled 38, the other 41 pupils. Extent of differences. The mental ages, and IQs found in the 2 classes are shown in Table 10. The individual differences revealed in Table 10 are enormous and startling. Class A has an age range of 9.5 to almost 14 years. Class B from 9.5 to almost 15 years. This would not be so serious if all were approximately equal mental ability. Such equality was conspicuously lacking. The pupils of Class A ranged in mental age from less than 10 years to more than 15 years, those of Class B from 7 3/4 years to 14 years. 2 pupils of Class A have reached a stage of mental development corresponding to that of the average pupil in the first year of high school. Either of these pupils could by 6 months' appropriate training be prepared to do good high school work. In the normal course of events, they would not reach high school for 3.5 years. At least 2 pupils in each class are mentally equal to 8th grade work. Almost exactly half of the pupils of Class A are mentally ripe for promotion at the 6th grade at least, and 1/4 are ready for the 7th grade. 2 months of appropriate training would doubtless fit them for such promotion. On the other hand, Class A contains 8 pupils and Class B 14 pupils who are at the 4th grade level of mental development, 9.5 to 10.5 years. while Class B contains 7 who probably belong in the 3rd grade. One of the latter, a pupil of 13 years, has a mental age below 8 and belongs more nearly in the high 2nd grade.
Taking the two classes together, we find all levels of ability represented from that normal in the 2nd grade to that normal in the 1st year of high school.
Consider for a moment the contrast between the brightest and dullest pupil in each class. In Class A, the highest IQ is 148, the lowest 78. In Class B, the highest is 144, the lowest 60. A child in the 140 IQ class should be able to attain marked success in one of the learned professions, but all the refinements of educational method are incapable of bringing a child of 60 IQ to the level of 7th grade ability. If both should remain in school, the former will be winning Phi Beta Kappa honors at college graduation, while the latter is still struggling with simple fractions or long division. The difference between 140 IQ and 60 IQ is 80 points. The difference between an average child and a high-grade idiot who will never develop beyond 3 years is also about 80 points. In the former case, we do not think of the contrast as being so great because our perception of intellectual differences in the upper ranges is much less accurate than for the lower ranges. We are on guard against stupidity. We often fail to recognize superiority. Table 10 shows the usual relationship found between chronological age and mental age in a given grade. Low mental age goes with high chronological age, and low chronological age with high mental age. Expressing it differently, the lowest IQs are possessed by the oldest pupils, the highest IQs by the youngest. In Class A, the 3rd highest mental age belongs to the youngest pupil. In Class B, the 2nd highest mental age is that of the youngest pupil. The two classes contrasted. Consider as two groups which are expected to cover the same work in a given time. Class A and Class B present a striking contrast. In Class A, 44% of the IQs are 110 or above. In Class B, only 10%. In Class A, 19% of the IQs are below 90. In Class B, 44%. In Class A, the median IQ is 108. In Class B, 91. The median mental age in Class B is slightly over 10 years, that in Class A is slightly under 12 years. In other words, the median mental ability of Class A corresponds to that normal to the 6th grade, the median of Class B to that normal for the 4th grade. 10% of the pupils of Class B test below 70. In Class A, none. In Class B, only 10% of the pupils test as high as 110. In Class A, 49%. As would be expected, the two classes presented an entirely different picture. The pupils of Class A were interested, alert, and above the average in industry. Those of Class B, inert and unresponsive. From what we know of the significance of the IQ and educational possibilities of these pupils can be predicted with a fair degree of assurance. Approximately 15 or 20% of the pupils of Class B will never, with any amount of instruction, be able to do the work of the 8th grade satisfactorily, and 50% are too inferior in endowment ever to complete a 4-year course in the average American high school. Of Class A, close to 80% should be able to graduate from a high school. Necessity of an absolute standard of comparison. The teachers of these two classes were not ability, training, and devotion to their work. Both were above average. Surely, one would suppose, they must have been keenly aware of the intellectual composition of their classes. They were not, except in the vaguest sort of way. Each teacher knew that she had some bright and some dull pupils. How bright or how dull was not known. Each teacher could rate her pupils only by comparing them with others in the same class. The teacher's classification of the pupils into the usual 5 groups, very superior, superior, average, inferior, and very inferior, gave the following results. Very superior, Class A, 2.6%. Class B, 0%. Superior, Class A, 15.7%. Class B, 5.2%. Average, Class A, 63.1%. Class B, 76.3%. Inferior, Class A, 15.7%. Class B, 13.1%. Very inferior, Class A, 2.6%. Class B, 5.2%. Although the number rated above average is much larger in Class A than in Class B, as it should be, the number rated below average is exactly the same in the two classes, namely 18.3%. The teacher of Class B did not know that her pupils averaged nearly a year below 5th grade ability, nor did the teacher of Class A know that her pupils averaged a year above. Neither teacher suspected that her class covered a range of 4 or 5 years in mental ability. In both classes, the significance of overageness and underageness had been overlooked, for overage pupils had been consistently rated too high, and the underage pupils too low by each teacher. It had not occurred to the teacher of Class B that a high school education was out of the question for half of her pupils. Even if she had stopped to consider the fact that several of her pupils were 3 or 4 years over age for the grade, how could she have known that this retardation would not be made up later? The intelligence test confirmed by other data. The contrast between the two classes as shown by the intelligence test is confirmed by the Crawdads tests, the Stone reasoning test, and the ERAS spelling test. Following are the median class in these tests and the median scores in the same test for the 5th grade classes of the city taken together. Addition: Class A 7.2, Class B 3.16, entire city 4.98. Subtraction: Class A 8.12, Class B 2.8, entire city 4.81. Multiplication: Class A 5.43, Class B 1.75, entire city 3.56. Division: Class A 3.66, Class B 0, entire city 2.63. Reasoning: Class A 2.56, Class B 1.72, entire city 1.73. Spelling: Class A 80, Class B 73.75, entire city 74.1. In the 4 fundamentals and in reasoning, the average difference between the classes amounts to more than 2 grades. The difference in spelling is considerably less. Retardation and acceleration. If we use the ERAS standard and call a pupil retarded who is in the 5th grade and 12 or more years old, then a fourth of the pupils of Class A and 29% of the pupils of Class B are retarded. This is a rather liberal standard. If we use 11.5 years instead of 12 as a basis for figuring retardation in the 5th grade, the amount is increased to 41.5% in Class A and 37% in Class B. The normal mental age in the 5th grade is 11 years. Below 10.5, a pupil cannot ordinarily be expected to do satisfactory work. Of the 11 overage pupils in Class B, i.e. over 12 years of age, only 2 are as high as 12 years mentally and 7 are below 10.5 mentally. 5 are at the 3rd grade level of mental ability. On the basis of mental age, not a single pupil in this class is retarded, but 7 are accelerated. 5 of these are accelerated fully 2 years. The median IQ of the 11 overage pupils is 74. Of the 10 pupils in Class A who are overage, above 12, only 3 are as much as 12 mentally. Of the remaining 7, 5 are correctly located according to mental age and 2 are a full grade accelerated. Again, we see that the chief cause of retardation is not irregular attendance, the use of a foreign language in the home, bad teeth, adenoids, malnutrition, etc., but inferior mental endowment. Educational reform may as well abandon, once and for all, the effort to bring all children up to grade. We have just seen that overage pupils were, on the basis of mental age, really accelerated. Turning now to the underage pupils, we find that these are the real retardates. Class B has 1 pupil and Class A has 2 pupils who are less than 10 years in chronological age. The mental ages are 14.3, 13.10, and 12.8. 2 of the 3 are mentally ripe for the 8th grade, the other for the 7th. The accelerates are in fact badly retarded. It is always so. We cannot too often repeat that the retardation problem is exactly the reverse of what it is commonly supposed to be. On the basis of chronological age, Class A, with 24.4% of its pupils above 12 years, makes a better showing than Class B with 29% above 12 years. On the basis of mental age, however, 49% of the pupils of Class A are retarded, as contrasted with 10.5% of Class B. From the point of view of mental hygiene, the conditions in the two classes, while different, are almost equally unsatisfactory. Class A is 49% above the standard mental age for the grade. Class B is 76.5% below. The 49% of Class A find the work too easy. Most of the 76% of Class B have a constant struggle to keep their heads above water. For both conditions, the educational lockstep, with its tendency to promote by the calendar, is responsible. Reform will have to be based upon a consideration of individual differences measured by mental and educational tests. End of Chapter 5 of The Intelligence of School Children.